The burial of the bottle. It was a hot summer evening when the doorbell rang at Steve's residence. Carol, a young and ambitious journalist, stood on the porch, her eyes filled with a mixture of determination and unease. She had been investigating a sensitive case for months, and the trail had led her to this unassuming suburban home. As the door opened, Carol was greeted by a middle-aged man, his face etched with a weary expression. "I'm Carol, the journalist from the Daily Tribune. I was hoping to speak with you about a matter of great importance." The man hesitated for a moment, then ushered her inside. "Come in, please. I've been expecting you." Carol followed him into the living room, her senses heightened, aware of the gravity of the situation. He gestured for her to take a seat, and she obliged, her notebook and pen at the ready. "I know why you're here," he began, his voice low and somber. "The truth is, I've been dreading this day for a long time, but I suppose it's time to finally come clean." Carol leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the man before her. "I'm listening. Whatever you tell me, I promise to handle it with the utmost care and discretion." He took a deep breath and began to recount the events that had unfolded years ago, events that had haunted him ever since. It had started with a simple mistake, a moment of carelessness that had spiraled out of control. Steve, a respected accountant in the community, had been tasked with overseeing a large financial transaction for a client. In a moment of weakness, he had succumbed to temptation and diverted a portion of the funds into his own personal account. At first, he had justified it to himself, telling himself that it was a temporary loan, that he would pay it back before anyone noticed. But as time passed, the guilt and fear began to consume him. He knew that if the truth were to come to light, it would not only ruin his career, but also shatter the trust of his family and the community he had worked so hard to build. As the months turned into years, Mr. Steve lived in a constant state of anxiety, always looking over his shoulder, terrified that the truth would eventually come to light. He became withdrawn, his once vibrant personality replaced by a haunted, guarded demeanor. "I thought I could get away with it," he confessed, his voice trembling. "I thought I could make it right. But the more I tried to cover it up, the deeper I sank. I became a prisoner in my own life, always afraid that the walls were closing in." Carol listened intently, her heart heavy with the weight of the man's confession. She could see the toll it had taken on him, the years of guilt and fear etched into his features. "What happened next?" she asked gently, her pen poised to capture every detail. Mr. Steve's gaze drifted to the window, as if he were reliving the events in his mind. "It all came crashing down one day," when my client discovered the discrepancy in the accounts. He threatened to go to the authorities, and I knew I had to act fast. He paused, his hands trembling slightly. I made a decision that I will regret for the rest of my life. I couldn't let everything I had built be destroyed, so I made the client disappear. Carol's eyes widened in shock, and she felt a chill run down her spine. You mean you killed him? The gravity of his words hung in the air, and Carol found herself struggling to process the information. She had come here expecting a story of financial impropriety, but this was something far more sinister. She was so caught up in the moment that she did not hear the two men come into the room from the kitchen. Before she knew it, one of the men had put his hand over her mouth and nose, suffocating her. As they were putting her body in the back of the truck, they heard a voice telling them, "You know what to do." The sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty road as the two men in the battered pickup truck navigated the winding path through the vast expanse of the desert. The air was thick with the scent of gasoline and the faint hint of something more sinister. Albert gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white as he focused intently on the road ahead. His partner, Bill, sat silently in the passenger seat, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Neither of them spoke, the only sound filling the cab being the rumble of the engine and the occasional crunch of gravel beneath the tires. As they drove, the landscape around them transformed from the sparse, scrubby vegetation of the desert's edge to the vast, undulating dunes that stretched out as far as the eye could see. The heat was oppressive, and sweat beaded on their brows, but they pressed on, their destination etched in their minds. Albert's thoughts drifted to the events that had led them to this moment. It had been a job like any other, a simple task that they had carried out countless times before. But this time, something felt different. Perhaps because they had never killed a woman before. Now, they were tasked with the grim duty of disposing of the body, a task that weighed heavily on their minds. They had chosen this remote location, far from prying eyes, to carry out their macabre task. The desert, with its endless expanse and unforgiving terrain, was the perfect place to bury their secret. As the truck rumbled on, Albert's gaze drifted to the rearview mirror, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of pursuit. But the road behind them was empty, save for the occasional tumbleweed that danced across the asphalt. The minutes ticked by, and the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the dunes. Finally, Albert spotted a small, weathered sign in the distance, indicating their turnoff. He slowed the truck, steering it off the main road and onto a narrow, winding path that led deeper into the desert. The going was rough, the truck bouncing and lurching over the uneven terrain. But Albert navigated it with the skill of a seasoned driver, his eyes fixed on the task at hand. Bill remained silent, his hands gripping the door handle as they navigated the treacherous path. After what felt like an eternity, the truck finally came to a stop in a small, secluded valley. The men stepped out, their muscles aching from the long drive. They surveyed the area, their eyes scanning for any signs of life or prying eyes. Satisfied that they were alone, they set to work. Grabbing a shovel from the back of the truck, they began to dig, their movements methodical and efficient. The sand was hot beneath their feet, and sweat poured down their faces as they worked in silence. The sound of the metal blade cutting through the hard-packed earth echoed through the valley. The only sound breaking the eerie silence as they dug, their thoughts drifted to the life they had taken, the weight of their actions bearing down on them. They had both been in this line of work for years, hardened by the violence and the constant threat of danger. But this was different. The hole grew deeper, the pile of displaced soil growing ever higher. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the desired depth. They both hesitated for a moment, staring down into the darkness. But then, without a word, carefully, they lowered the body into the grave, their movements slow and deliberate. Once the body was in place, they began to fill the hole, their shovels biting into the earth with each thrust. The task was arduous, the hot sun beating down on them as they worked. But they pressed on, driven by the need to erase any trace of their crime. As the last of the soil was packed down, they stepped back, surveying their handiwork. The grave was indistinguishable from the surrounding landscape. The only sign of their presence, the faint tracks left by the truck. Satisfied that their task was complete, they turned their attention to the final step, the burial of the bottle. This was a ritual they had performed countless times before, a way to mark the end of a job and to ensure that their secret remained hidden. Carefully, they dug a small hole at the base of the grave, just large enough to accommodate the bottle. They placed it inside, the glass glinting in the fading light, and then covered it over, ensuring that no trace of their presence. The chase on the rails, a pre-World War I, calm masked the coming global upheaval. Amidst this backdrop, a train chugged steadily through the English countryside, its destination, Dover. Aboard the 1914 vessel, a passenger captivated many. The air was thick with a mix of excitement and unease as the train thundered down the tracks, its rhythmic chugging creating a comforting backdrop to the day's unfolding drama. Outside, the view was a mosaic of vibrant green meadows and charming hamlets, smelling fresh earth wafting through the windows, contrasting with arguing the imminent war. Inside the train carriage, the passenger in question sat quietly, their demeanor calm, yet enigmatic. Dressed in a sharp suit and hat, they exuded an air of mystery that drew curious glances from their fellow travelers. The train's rhythmic motion seemed to lull the other passengers into a sense of security, but an aura of intrigue surrounded this particular individual. The landscape outside the window shifted from a bustling cityscape to serene countryside. The enigmatic passenger remained a captivating enigma. Who was this mysterious figure, and what secrets did they carry with them on this fateful journey to Dover? The answers lay shrouded in the depths of their enigmatic presence, waiting to be unraveled by the curious minds on board. As the train neared its destination, the tension on board seemed to heighten, mirroring the growing unease gripping the world at large. Little did the passengers know the events set in motion by this mysterious traveler would soon intersect with the tumult of war, forever altering the course of history. Among the passengers was Mata Hari, the enigmatic Dutch dancer and courtesan who had captivated and charmed the elite of Europe. But her allure had drawn suspicion, and the British intelligence service had dispatched one of their finest, a seasoned spy named Jonathan Hawke, to shadow her every move. As the train pulled away from Victoria Station, Jonathan positioned himself discreetly in the adjoining compartment. His eyes never left the door to Mata Hari's cabin. Dressed in an inconspicuous dark suit, he blended seamlessly with the other travelers, his demeanor calm, but his senses alert. The rhythmic clattering of the train wheels provided a steady soundtrack to the journey. Jonathan's thoughts were as relentless as the locomotive's progress. He knew Mata Hari was dangerous. Her charm and beauty merely veils for her cunning and guile. The British had reason to believe she was ferrying secrets to the enemy, and Jonathan's mission was simple: follow her, gather evidence, and ensure she did not slip through their fingers. In her compartment, Mata Hari appeared unperturbed, gazing out at the passing landscapes with an air of nonchalance. Her elegant attire, a blend of exoticism and European sophistication, further enhanced her mystique. Her eyes, however, betrayed a sharpness, a readiness for the unexpected. As the train approached the coastal town of Dover, Jonathan's instincts heightened. He knew that if Mata Hari were to escape, it would be through the port, where she could easily vanish across the channel to France. He reviewed his plan, every move calculated to counter any strategy she might employ. The train's whistle announced their arrival at Dover. Passengers gathered their belongings, anticipation mingling with the salty sea air. Jonathan observed Mata Hari, who seemed in no rush. Her leisurely demeanor was unnerving. But Jonathan knew better than to underestimate her. At the station, the hustle and bustle provided ample cover for both pursuers and pursued. Jonathan kept a safe distance, blending with the crowd. Mata Hari moved with purpose, her steps leading her inevitably towards the ferry docks. As the crowd surged forward, Jonathan deftly maneuvered through the throng, maintaining his vigil on Mata Hari. His heart pounded, the adrenaline of the chase sharpening his senses. He saw her exchange a quick glance with a man in a gray overcoat, a signal too subtle for most eyes, but not for Jonathan's trained observation. Mata Hari quickened her pace, gliding through the bustling station with the grace of a dancer. Jonathan matched her stride for stride, his focus unwavering. He noticed the man in the gray overcoat shadowing her, and it became clear Jonathan was not the only one on her trail. The docks were a maze of activity, with ferries preparing for departure and travelers hurrying to embark. Mata Hari headed towards a smaller vessel, its destination marked as Calais. Jonathan felt the tension coil within him. He had to act swiftly to prevent her escape. Just as Mata Hari reached the gangway, Jonathan closed the gap, his hand inching towards his concealed firearm. But before he could make his move, the man in the gray overcoat stepped forward, blocking Jonathan's path. Their eyes locked, a silent recognition passing between the two agents of their deadly game. In a flash, the man drew a weapon, and something forced Jonathan to dive for cover. The crack of gunfire split the air, sending panic through the crowd. With the sight of her bodyguard lying dead with a bullet in the middle of his forehead, Mata Hari, seizing the moment of chaos, darted up the gangway and onto the ferry. Jonathan scrambled to his feet, his gaze fixed on the retreating figure of the dancer, now almost obscured by the fleeing passengers. Desperate, Jonathan sprinted towards the ferry, but it was too late. The vessel pulled away from the dock, the gap between the ship and the quay widening with every second. He watched as Mata Hari stood at the railing, a faint, knowing smile playing on her lips. The sound of the ship's horn echoed through the harbor, signaling its departure. Jonathan's heart sank as he realized he had missed his chance to reach Mata Hari. The image of her standing there, so close yet out of reach, haunted him as the ferry disappeared into the horizon. Despair washed over him as he stood alone on the empty dock, the cold wind cutting through his coat and sending shivers down his spine. The sound of seagulls echoed in the distance, a stark reminder of the solitude that enveloped him. His heart ached with the weight of uncertainty, wondering if this missed connection would be his biggest regret. The memories of their last meeting played like a broken record in his mind, each moment tinged with longing and a sense of unfinished business. as he gazed out at the vast expanse of water. He couldn't shake the feeling that something important had slipped through his fingers, leaving him adrift in a sea of what-ifs and maybes. The setting sun cast a golden hue over the horizon, painting a bittersweet picture of what could have been. Colorless heart. Set your story in a world that has lost all color. Colorless Heart by Lucy Apatow. Marie roused from sleep in the double bed inside the Paris Hilton Hotel. She sank into the comfort of the silky sheets and the fresh fabric smell. A smile splashed across her face, unable to open her eyes just yet. Freedom at last. Just her. No one else. No jumping on eggshells. Not being caught off guard. No secrets. No lies. Just Marie. No other soul in this room. Away from him. But it wasn't only about liberation. It was about protection. Keeping her loved ones safe. She had to keep them alive. And this was the only way. Freedom for herself, but separation from her loved ones. But that one person foremost in her brain. Salvatore. Marie had recently attended a gun range and learned how to fire a gun, just in case. She never knew when she might need to use it. It was about protection. The alarm on her mobile phone jerked her fully awake. A yawn filtered through as she slowly opened her eyes and spotted her phone on the dull black bedside table that had been brown yesterday. The white cushions that had been hues of purple. The black curtains that had been taupe. The ash-black carpet beneath the bed that had been gray. And the black sky through a gap in the window curtain that had been blue. No more blue skies. No more shades other than black and white. The world had lost its color. Marie's breath quickened as her heart palpitated. She rose from bed and rubbed her eyes hard. It had to be her eyes. Had she suddenly become colorblind? Where were all the bright, vibrant colors when it was what she needed? She shut, then opened her eyes, but nothing changed. Her world was drab, colorless, soulless. Her shoulders slumped over. Her head bowed. A slow chill ran up and down her spine. Curiosity peaked. Her skin reddened and turned hot. She had no choice but to be here in this colorless world. What had happened overnight to turn her entire world into a shroud of darkness with only black and white in its midst? Marie wandered outside the hotel, lost in a world where she knew no one. She had left Melbourne to make a fresh start in Paris, so nobody would find her. So he couldn't find her. She couldn't believe having woken up in a with shades of gray and black blocking her view of natural color, light, and even shades of gray. A bench with a view of the river Seine, looked inviting as she made her way over, put her bag down, and stared at the calm ripples with a view of the majestic Eiffel Tower. Sailing boats anchored in the water, bunched up trees, and riders swinging their arms inside canoes. The wind scraped her face in the winter. Nothing but black and white. Marie flashed back to her former life. Back home where she worked as an interior designer, married to a man she didn't love, and friends who would most likely understand her escape. Yesterday, her world was dark, but today, after she awoke, it became darker, grittier, and scarier. Did this lack of color mean something? Could she no longer design with color to refresh old homes or design new ones if she wanted to start over in France? She had not rung anyone except her best friend Helena about her sudden escape for their own protection. With a call from a burner phone, she announced her safe arrival. "Do you have color? Or has the world changed?" Helena replied. "What are you talking about? The things in the world. They're in black and white, Helena. I woke up this morning and nothing was in color. No blues, browns, pinks, purple, yellows, or any color. All gone. Is Melbourne the same? Don't be silly, Marie. We still have color. Have you become colorblind? Had your eyes checked? You couldn't have become colorblind in an instant. Go get them tested. Oh, and please stay safe. I don't know when I'll call you next. You know how he is. He could be tracking this conversation, even if it's on a burner phone. I love you, Marie, and I'm glad you're safe now. One day, we'll be together again." Marie fought back tears after ending the call. She would miss her loved ones, but she still didn't get what was going on. Was she the crazy one? Or did only Paris lose its color? With a sigh, Marie rose and made her way back to the hotel, knowing she'd have to find herself permanent residence. As she crossed the wide road, a towering man brushed her shoulder. "Oh, sorry." He locked eyes with her and walked ahead of her on the other side of the road. His broad shoulders and black eyes made her shudder, stopping in his tracks. "I have a message to give you." She angled her head. "Who are you?" "Here, take this," he said. She retrieved the note. He watched her. Who the hell was this guy? And why was he making her nervous? "Who are you?" "I'm just the messenger, lady. Read the note." "Who sent you?" He inched his way closer. Benny did. "Now read the note." "No. Not again." He found her. Would this bastard ever leave her alone? With a shuddering breath, she unfolded the note, her hands shaking and the back of her neck sweating. Bits of her skin prickled. What was this? She had to be dreaming as she read the note. Her vision blurred, as if the words weren't real. The threat wasn't real. Meet me in front of the Louvre tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. sharp, or someone you love dies. The same old threats again. How did he find me? The man bared his crooked teeth with a smile. He swaggered off into the distance. It wasn't over. It never would be. The next morning, Marie paced her steps towards the Louvre, a queue that was a mile long. She wondered if anyone would ever reach the entrance to the museum. The glass panels of the building distracted her from the enemy she was about to meet. Each step drew her closer to the devil. When would it end? Her breath hitched as she stepped on uneven ground, razor-sharp pain cutting into her lower back as she fought the gust of frozen wind. She had to free herself. But how? He would always find her, threaten her, obsess over her, and abuse her. She'd been abused for 3 torturous years. Storm clouds brewed when Marie drew closer to the swarms of people. It was almost 9 o'clock, and passers-by stared at her as if she as an alien. Was it obvious she was heading towards her death chamber, to her dreaded foe? A cold caress at the back of her neck made her freeze in her spot. She turned. It was him. Benny. In all his wealthy glamour, the bastard wore a black tie, black buttoned-up suit jacket over a black cashmere jumper with black pleated pants over Italian leather shoes. He smelled rich. "Follow me," he said, as he prodded her towards an unknown destination. They walked in silence as his intermittent glares unnerved her. The squeeze of his arm draped through hers, leaving bruises, but she said nothing. His pinch at the back of her neck made her flinch, but she said nothing. The push and pull of her hair strands made her want to cry out, but she didn't. Hidden pain to display her fake strength. When finally, she sat down outside the cafe with its outdoor setting, he ordered hot drinks and croissants. "No one does what you did, and gets away with it," she swallowed, her lip trembling as she stared past him. "Please don't hurt him," he chuckled and threw his head back, his stained white teeth prominent. Flicking a cigarette over an ashtray, he tilted his head. "You're lucky I love you, Marie. If I didn't love you, you'd be dead by now. But you ever try something like this again, and I won't hesitate to slash your throat, feed your decrepit body to the fish in the Seine River. Got that?" She nodded, a black spot clouding her vision. Puffs of smoke floated towards her and made her cough. Not that he cared. He was a narcissist. He retrieved his phone. "Watch this. No, I mean business, Marie. I don't blow damn smoke up my arse." She gripped the phone and saw him, tied up to a chair, gagged, beaten, tortured. 2 black eyes, bruising across his cheek, haggard, frail, head hanging down low, as if giving up. No, don't give up, my love. Never give up. A gasp of air grounded her. Rattling teeth must have made her look scared in front of him. Is he all right? He scoffed. That depends on you. You put one foot wrong. Leave me again, and he dies. Only when we're safely back home, he'll be released. The waiter returned with the croissants and hot coffees. Sorry about the croissants. They're a little overcooked, but these are more their natural yellow. Marie winced. But those croissants are black, not yellow. He waved a hand. Don't mind her. She's the constant joker. But no worries. We'll have them as they are. The waiter nodded. Black, you say? Benny glared. Leave us. The waiter walked off with a curious gaze. He turned to her. What is wrong with you? Can't you see the color of the food? How could he not see what she was seeing? What was wrong with her? No, everything is black and white. I don't see color anymore. He laughed. Are you telling me you don't? You see the brown coffees, the blue ashtray, the beige tablecloth, my red tie, my dashing blue eyes. Her heart missed a beat as she gritted her teeth. No, I lost sight of color this morning. I woke up like this. Everything is black and white. Interesting, he said. Marie looked past him and spotted the man she'd seen earlier. The one who had given her the note. He was standing by a lamppost, sculling a bottle of beer. Why was he around? He must have been Benny's bodyguard, in case she made a run for it. Marie and Benny stepped inside her hotel room. He pushed her towards the wardrobe. Start packing. Our flight leaves in a few hours. Okay then. She pushed aside her floating tears and steeled herself by pulling out her suitcase from underneath the bed, unzipping it. As if in a surreal world, she pulled clothing off hangers and threw them into the suitcase. She was going back to her prison, away from the love of her life. If only she had been stronger a few years ago, when he had framed her ex-boyfriend, Salvatore, for murder, just so he could be free from prison. She was forced to marry him. Marriage to Benny in exchange for Salvatore's freedom. She had never explained why she'd broken up with him. Had to convince Salvatore she no longer loved him. It had cut her insides, but she had to keep him safe. Salvatore had not given up on her and found ways for them to meet secretly. But Benny always found out about their secret rendezvous. He had put plans in place, made the worst things happen. Benny involved in Salvatore crashing his car, ruining his reputation in business, injuring his friend with a beating by his henchmen, and almost killing him at least twice. Now Salvatore was threatened with death. What more could the creep do? I'm having a shower, he said. She sat on the bed. How could she go back with him? But she had no choice when Salvatore would die if she didn't. Benny's phone lay on the bedside table. Curious, she picked it up and found his recording. Salvatore was still tied to the chair, still tortured and broken. But wait, something was weird about this video. The actions were the same. His movements repeated in a cycle, as if it was on a loop. This wasn't her true love life. This was a fake video. It had to be. Could Salvatore have arranged this? Outsmarted Benny again? She smiled to herself. Now she had a chance to do something. Fight him. Hurt him. But no, she wasn't a violent person and had morals. Nothing like Benny. What could she do? Run away again? But Benny might pursue Salvatore and never stop. He would never stop finding her until his own death. She knew that. So what could she do? She could never reason with a crazy person. A knock on the door made her jolt in her spot. It could be anyone. Her heart racing, she slowly opened the door and flinched when the man from earlier pushed past her. "Where's Benny? What are you doing here?" the man whispered in her ear. "Listen, Salvatore will set you free. Get out of here." She swallowed, her vision blurring. What? The back of her neck sweated as one ear listened in on Benny in the shower. "No time to talk. Leave. Now. We'll take care of this." She was right. It was a fake recording. He'd escaped. Where is he? The man swung the gun in his hand, scanning past her. "He's closer than you think. Go now." Her heart soared, and a spot of color flashed in her vision. But only fleetingly. It turned black and white again. What in hell is going on here? Benny grasped something from his back pocket. "Why are you here?" The man shrugged until reaching his side pocket and shooting towards Benny, who shifted to the side, the bullet grazing his cheek. But Benny pulled out his own gun and took aim. The gun hit the man square in the chest. He fell back against the door with a thud. Marie quaked. It was over. No love, no freedom. "You will never leave me." "Never, Marie. Get that. Nobody will ever take you away from me. Grab your things. Hurry up." He shifted the strange man's body to the bathroom, blood pouring out of him like a tap. When he returned, Benny shoved her aside and flung the remainder of her clothes into the suitcase. "Now zip it up and let's leave pronto." He sat on the sofa and scrolled through his phone. A call to one of his stupid thugs. Goosebumps swarmed like insects over her arms as a dull ache at the back of her neck made her queasy. This had to stop. Slowly zipping up the baggage. A shuffling sound underneath the bed made her think she was hearing things. But no. She spotted a shoe protruding from the corner as someone glided further to the edge near the bedside table. Salvatore appeared and placed a finger across his lips, hefting a gun. She moved towards Benny, pulled the suitcase off the bed, and retrieved her bag. "I'm ready." Salvatore flung himself in the open and approached Benny with an aim of his gun. "Put your hands up. Now." Benny flinched. "You have a death wish, don't you? You might have got away from my men, but you'll never win this war. I will fight you to the death, Benny. I don't care if I die, so long as Marie goes free. Free from your dungeon. Free from your psychopathic world. You loser." He faced Marie. "Go now. I'll take care of this." She shook her head. "We fight with our hands. Fight to the death." Benny scoffed. "Fine with me." He shoved his pistol inside his back pocket and took a fighting stance while Salvatore did the same. "No, please, Salvatore. Just go. I can't be with you. Benny's my husband. I'm going back to Melbourne with him. Please leave." "No, Marie, enough is enough." Benny threw the first punch, then another and another, until he went down. He gouged one of Salvatore's eyes and flung his head hard against the carpet. Marie moved. "No, Benny, stop. I'll come with you. Please stop." Benny softened, giving Salvatore the chance to pound into Benny with a blow to the kidney, and then a swift kick in the leg. Lamps overturned, magazines tumbled in the air, and the coffee table shifted. Benny kicked him on the side of his abdomen, and he keeled over. She had to do something. But what? Benny reached for something in his pants pocket. A flick knife. No. He was going to break the rules. Not on her watch. Salvatore attempted to rise when Benny stepped forward. A smirk plastered over his face. He wandered over to him when the knife swung in the air. Marie reached for his back pocket, pulled out the gun, and aimed. "Stop, or I'll shoot," he scoffed. "You don't have the guts. Don't even know guns." Benny ignored her, about to stab Salvatore in the throat. Marie pulled the trigger and shot him twice in the stomach. The knife fell, and he dropped like a sack of potatoes. Blood seeped onto the carpet, and she watched and waited for the life force to draw out of him. 3 years of hell. 3 years of watching over her shoulder. 3 years of fearing the lives of her loved ones. Walking quietly on eggshells. Those days were over as the rotten apple drew his last breath. Salvatore shuffled towards her and hugged her. "I love you, Marie. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from him. You've always protected me." She beamed. "I love you too, Salvatore." She savored the gentle caress of her lover's strong arms around her waist. Her eyes shifted, her surroundings vibrating with color. Nor more colorless world. High-speed train. Congressman David Chen found himself where he never guessed he'd be. The dining car on the express. A high-speed train humming through the Hungarian countryside. A patchwork of browns and gray dirty snow flashed by. abandoned Soviet-era factories, past surreal in skeletal frames, riddled with broken windows and crumbling walls. David's head pounded. Nausea caused him to sweat. He hated trains, but loved his wife, and the Prague conference was over. Just one more meeting, and then he and his wife could take a river cruise out of Budapest. Studying the wine list across from David sat Marcus Blackwood. When the waiter came, he ordered a 2016 Tokaji. The waiter paused and bit his lower lip, avoiding Blackwood's eyes. "We only have a 2018. Your boss promised the 2016, Blackwood said, stroking his precisely trimmed stubble. "I suggest you find it, or else." David noted his old friend, the Blackwood he'd grown up with, the new director of Aid Alliance, had mastered making threats. "Trains have a finite quality," Blackwood mused as they waited for the wine. "Once you're on them, you can't get off." David sipped water from a crystal glass. "But you can change the destination. That depends on who's controlling the switches," Blackwood said. "By the way, how's your Sarah? She starts Columbia in the fall. Is that right? The tuition must be a killer." His stomach rolled over. How did Blackwood know about the Columbia acceptance letter? "She's fine. Elizabeth and I are quite proud of her. I saw you with Elizabeth at the Prague conference." "Vacation?" "Yes. Doubling up the conference with time in Budapest." Blackwood winked. "And a write-off for the entire trip?" Blackwood tossed his right hand. "I was thinking about how we've known each other since the early days. Hell, I was at your wedding. We're warriors, you and I. Into the breach and all that. Well, this warrior is getting tired of the congressional grind. I'm thinking of not running next term. Call it quits." Blackwood laughed, his thick frame tight against his dress shirt. "Say it ain't so." "No, I would quit. But there's more I want to do. A few years, maybe. Then on to the speaker circuit. Or maybe a pack." The waiter returned with a 2016. "We're in luck, Mr. Blackwood." He opened the wine, offered a taste, then served them both. He carefully placed the bottle on the immaculate white tablecloth. "About your upcoming committee vote," Blackwood said. "Aid distribution, of course, is of paramount importance. But with our audit showing only 30 cents on the dollar reaching recipients, there's some pushback we're fighting against." "I've reviewed the proposal," David said. $8 billion might take some time to get through committee. Blackwood adjusted his broad shoulders and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We need to think about this from the 30,000-foot view," he said. "After all, think of the optics. We're supporting democracy, fighting corruption, and aiding fledgling governments who need the world's help." The waiter refilled their wine glasses while the two men looked on. When he left, Blackwood gulped his wine, leaned into the table, and reached out to adjust David's tie. "Our organization believes there's a benefit to a network of partners. We need expertise to walk us through a complex banking system the regulatory environment. Would you consider getting involved? A non-profit, hip deep in money laundering, David thought. Excessive compensation, shell companies. A big plunge for a guy who doesn't fudge on taxes. Never has. Never will. I'm a congressman. I can't touch this, you know that, David said. No. Your role would be legitimate, I assure you, Blackwood said. That's what the advisory board is all about. Insurance for, he chuckled, derailments. We want you as a board member after your term ends. It's just, well, in the meantime, we'd like your advice. As a friend. The dulled rush of an opposing train sped by their window. Blackwood steepled his hands in front of him. How's Elizabeth's gallery, by the way? Her art might be worth more once she's passed. Of course, that could be decades away. We certainly don't want any harm to come to her, do we? Blackwood looked down and cut another piece of his steak. David's fork froze on the way to his mouth. He felt anger ripping his insides at the veiled threat against his wife. After slowly setting his fork down, he picked up his wine glass. His hand shook as he gripped the glass, but he gripped harder, and then harder still. The train entered a tunnel. David lost his concentration, diverted by the sudden brightness of the two men's reflection in the window. He stared at the image, but the man in the reflection who looked like him didn't stare back, but shattered the glass with his hand. David stared, transfixed. His reflection picked up a shard with his bleeding hand and wrapped the pointed glass with his cloth napkin. He then reached across the table and slashed Blackwood's throat. Blood splattered on the table as the reflection of Blackwood collapsed. The reflection blanked out as the train shot from the tunnel exit, the horn howling into the twilight. David stared at the wine glass in his hand. Blackwood was no longer across from him. David stumbled from the dining car. He lurched down the corridor to his sleeper cabin, fell into Elizabeth as she opened the door, reeled to the water closet, and retched in the toilet. "David, what happened?" Elizabeth called through the door. "My God!" The train approached the outskirts of the city. High rises ahead, pinned to the night sky, the lights in the windows staring down. Soon the train squealed into the station. Elizabeth gripped her husband's arm as they walked to the taxi stand, her eyes riveted on his face. "David? Darling? Are you okay? What happened?" "It's nothing," he said. She held him closer. "Are you feeling better? Talk to me. Did you forget anything?" David steadied himself against his wife. "No, I haven't left anything." As they walked to the taxi stand, he felt in his gut that Blackwood was gone. He realized he'd left him on the train. Some things you can never explain, he thought. But then he felt oddly privileged. He smiled, and even the grime of Budapest tasted a little cleaner. Fate, or science, or the devil himself had stepped in. But not God, he thought. No, this wasn't God. It was another presence who didn't like the alliance, weighing the direction of his daughter's future, his wife's safety, or the price for his looking the other way. "Your hand's bleeding," Elizabeth said. "It looks like a piece of glass. Strange paint." Deborah had always been a solitary artist, pouring her heart and soul into her work in a dimly lit studio that smelled of turpentine and linseed oil. Her latest masterpiece was a vibrant canvas depicting a mystical forest, alive with creatures that seemed to shimmer and dance under the flickering light of a nearby candle. As she painted the final stroke, the colors swirled and shimmered, as if the very essence of life had been captured within the frame. Unbeknownst to her, the painting was not just a piece of art. It was a portal to another realm, one that thrummed with whispers and secrets waiting to be uncovered. One stormy night, a curious art collector named Harold stumbled upon Deborah's gallery. He was immediately drawn to her latest creation, the forest, alive with colors that seemed to pulse in the dim light. Despite the warnings of the gallery owner, who sensed an unsettling energy emanating from the painting, Harold insisted on purchasing it. He felt an inexplicable connection to the artwork, as if it called out to him, promising wonders beyond his imagination. That night, he hung the painting in his study, entranced by its beauty and unaware of the darkness lurking within. Harold could not look away from the painting as the clock struck midnight. The figures within it, elusive woodland creatures and ethereal beings, began to shift and move, their eyes glinting with mischief and allure. They beckoned him closer, their whispers growing louder, promising secrets of the universe and glimpses of forgotten dreams. Each night, Harold returned to the painting, his heart racing with excitement and fear as he felt himself slipping deeper into its enchanting world. Days turned into weeks, and Harold's life began to unravel. He neglected his work, and isolation became his companion. Friends and family expressed their concern, but he brushed them aside, captivated by the beauty and mystery of the painting. In the quiet hours of the night, he would sit before the canvas, losing track of time as the figures danced and twirled, drawing him into their virulent realm where reality blurred into fantasy. The whispers became more urgent, more insistent, wrapping around him like a warm embrace. One fateful night, driven by an insatiable curiosity, Harold reached out to touch the canvas. The moment his fingers brushed against the surface, a surge of energy coursed through him, and he felt himself pulled into the painting. The colors enveloped him, swirling around him like a tempest, and in an instant, he was no longer in his study, but standing in the very heart of the enchanted forest. The creatures surrounded him, their laughter echoing like chimes in the wind, and he felt a sense of belonging that he had never known before. As days turned into nights in this new reality, Harold became a part of the painting, a mere shadow of his former self. He danced with the creatures, forgetting the life he had left behind, lost in a world where time held no meaning. Yet, deep within him, a flicker of awareness remained, a whisper of the life he had abandoned. The forest, once a place of wonder, transformed into a labyrinth of shadows, and the creatures he had once adored began to reveal their true nature, deceptive and sinister. In the end, Harold understood too late that the enchanting world of Deborah's painting was a trap, a seductive illusion that fed on his very essence. As he stood among the figures, now twisted and grotesque, he realized he had become one of them, a mere echo of a man who had once been alive. The painting hung in his study, a beautiful facade hiding the darkness within, whispering secrets to anyone who dared to gaze upon it, inviting them to join him in the eternal dance of despair. One rainy afternoon, a friend of Harold's, Claire, knocked on the door of his house. She had grown increasingly worried about him since he had purchased the painting. Harold hadn't returned her calls in weeks, and she felt an unsettling urgency to check on him in person. As she entered, the air felt thick, charged with an energy that sent a shiver down her spine. "Harold!" she called, her voice echoing through the dimly lit hallway. There was no response, only the sound of raindrops tapping against the window. Claire moved cautiously toward the study, her heart racing. The door creaked open, revealing the painting that had captivated Harold's very soul. She gasped as she stepped inside, the vibrant colors of the forest contrasting sharply with the shadows that loomed over the room. The painting seemed to pulse with life as Claire approached it, and she felt an inexplicable pull, as if the figures within were beckoning her to join them. But something was off. The forest looked darker than she remembered, and the laughter of the creatures now sounded like haunting whispers. "Harold!" she called again, her voice trembling. Suddenly, she noticed a flicker of movement in the corner of her eye. It was Harold, standing eerily still before the painting, his gaze fixed on it as if he were entranced. She rushed to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Harold, are you okay? You've been gone for so long. I was worried sick." His head slowly turned to her, but his eyes were vacant, as if he were staring through her rather than at her. "Claire," he murmured, his voice distant. "You have to see. It's beautiful here. You can join me. We can be free." Fear gripped Claire as she looked back at the painting, where the creatures now gazed hungrily at her, their smiles widening. "Harold, this isn't right. You need to come back with me," she pleaded, shaking him gently, but he shook his head, a hint of desperation flickering in his eyes. "You don't understand. This is where I belong now. The forest. It holds everything I've ever wanted. You can't leave it. You have to stay." His voice grew softer, almost pleading. "You have to join us." Claire's heart raced as she realized the truth. The painting had ensnared Harold, twisting his mind and spirit. And now it was trying to lure her in as well. She took a step back, her instincts screaming at her to escape. "No, Harold! You have to fight it. This isn't you." At that moment, the creatures in the painting began to writhe and stretch, their forms becoming more grotesque, their laughter turning into a cacophony of chilling echoes. They reached out with elongated fingers, as if trying to break free from the confines of the canvas. The air grew heavy, thick, with a malevolent energy that made it difficult to breathe. "Join us, Claire," they chorused, their voices a twisted melody that tugged at her heart. "It's beautiful here. You'll never feel pain again." With a surge of resolve, Claire grabbed Harold's arm and pulled him away from the painting. "No, you're stronger than this. Remember who you are," she shouted, her voice breaking through the haze that enveloped him. For a brief moment, Harold blinked, confusion flickering across his face. "Claire? What's happening?" "Just breathe," she urged, her grip tightening around his arm. "We have to get out of here." The creatures within the painting howled in fury, their vibrant colors darkening as they sensed their prey slipping away. The shadows in the room twisted and churned, threatening to swallow them whole. Claire pulled harder, dragging Harold away from the painting, and as they stumbled backward, the connection between him and the canvas began to fray. With one last desperate attempt, the creatures lunged forward, their claws reaching for Harold. But just as they were about to grasp him, Claire shouted, "No!" and yanked him out of the study, slamming the door shut behind them. They stumbled into the hallway, gasping for breath, the oppressive weight of the painting's energy dissipating. Claire turned to Harold, who was finally coming back to himself, confusion and fear etched on his face. "What just happened?" he gasped, shaking as if waking from a nightmare. "You were lost in that painting," Claire said, her voice trembling. "It was trying to take you, to keep you forever. But we escaped. You're safe now." As relief washed over Harold, he looked back at the closed door of his study, where the painting hung silently, its colors muted in the absence of his gaze. "I didn't realize. I thought I was free. Claire placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. You were caught in its spell, but you're stronger than it. We need to get rid of that painting before it claims anyone else. With newfound determination, they returned to the study, where the painting seemed to loom larger, its colors still swirling with a hypnotic allure. Together, they hatched a plan to destroy it, to sever the bond it had formed with Harold, and ensure that no one else would fall victim to its seductive trap. As they prepared to confront the darkness within the canvas, they knew that the battle was far from over. The forest might have tried to claim Harold, but together they would fight to reclaim his freedom and banish the malevolent forces that lurked behind the vibrant colors. The whispers from the painting grew louder, but this time they would not be silenced. Keep going. Suddenly, I looked up. Was I asleep? Had I forgotten my flight? Everyone around me seemed nervous, or so it seemed to me. I immediately reached for my robotic purse. It's always a good thing to carry on such a journey. Its fingerprint scanner still worked. I looked across the way at the panini shop, at which point there was a thunderous roar in my belly. Suddenly, the sound of a plane landing. Attention customers, flight boo, boo, boo to San Francisco, now boarding. Aha, I've caught you. I immediately grabbed at anything I could. Things that I was pretty sure were mine, or that would be nice to own in any case. As we all stumbled toward the flight gate with our boarding pass, it became obvious that we weren't all going to get the window seat in the cockpit. Someone was going to have to fly the plane. You can handle this, young Hopite, I said to myself. Remember your training, yon grasshopper. I walked up to the gate like a supermodel doing her taxes. It wasn't easy being this funky. The airport attendant shot me a glance as I approached, then looked back down at his screens. My eyes are up here. Buddy, may I help you, miss? Yes. Well, I would like to get on the plane. Which plane? That one. The one at the end of the gate. There is no other plane. Miss, you have to be specific. It's my first day on the job. I looked at him with a deep sense of pity, not wanting to shake anything up. He had the look of an Ohio school teacher who had gotten lost after an all-night kegger. I gingerly handed him my ticket. Are you sure you're in the right airport? The right airport? Yes, yes, yes. You're sure? Or yes, you're agreeing with me? Yes, I'm sure that I am agreeing with you. Yes, this is the right airport. I'm sure of it. I majored in airports in college. Okay, take your boarding pass over here and get on that plane over there if you need further instruction. Okay, I'm good. Let's go. I subsequently made it to the boarding window. Miss Bakersfield, said the boarding attendant, with the gigantic glasses. Yes? You've been bumped up to first class. Jesus, couldn't have thought of a better ending than that. I kissed my ticket and pressed it to the sky, my bags and body armor hanging off me like the tattered rags of a battered Superman. Where is first class? In the back? I asked in pure euphoria. On the plane. I got on the plane. And what did I see? First class was amazing. The people here were so jelly of my success that I could barely contain myself. I sat next to a young, old gentleman reading a financial newspaper. Soon enough, we went down the runway, and then we all collectively hopped into the air at once, hurling the 100-ton behemoth into space. As soon as we struck the atmosphere, I got chatty and looked to my left, only to find that the newspaper cemented to my compatriot's face had now been surgically removed. "Hello?" I said. "I'm Miss Bakersfield." "So they say." "So who says?" "I've got no time for questions. I'm a very busy man." "Busy doing what?" "Busy reading newspapers. You know that every time a newspaper is printed, a priest starves to death in Bangladesh? Is that in the Guinness Book? It should be. Where are you going?" "Who said I need to be going anywhere?" "You're the one who's going away. Forgive my impetuosity. We are both hurtling through space at the speed of light. I figured you would be going somewhere. It's all in the mind." "Yes, sir. I agree. It truly is in the mind." "Do you buy timeshares?" "Sorry, I don't. I was asking because I wanted to buy one for myself." "Really? That's interesting." "Yes. I made my first $1,000 selling timeshares in Old Italy. And then Jesus was crucified." He let out an uproarious laugh that could not be mistaken for sarcasm, traveling at this speed. "So," I said, not having understood my place in the scheme of life. "Nurse," he said. "I'm not a nurse," said the flight attendant as she walked by. "What can I get for you?" "Could you bring me my hunting knife?" "Yes, right away." "Hunting knife?" I said. "Yes," he said. "I like to flick my knife when I get nervous." The flight attendant went toward the cockpit and then knocked on the door, using a secret knock that only people with knives understood. Suddenly, the door opened, and there stood the co-pilot. He spoke with her a while, and then handed her what looked, from a distance, to be a small child wrapped in leather. As she dragged it back to where we were, I almost expected it to start singing its ABCs, until she walked over to me, lugged it over my lap, and handed it to the man who never went anywhere. He sat there with the small, sharp, metallic toddler in his hand, flicking the edge of the blade. Each flicking was a bullet to my eardrum, but I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. Thank God my purse was robotic. Or was it really? The man who never went anywhere flicked his blade a few more times. "Have you ever bought a hotel?" "I'm allergic." "I didn't say that. I said, did you ever buy a hotel?" "Well, I am in first class." Now that's a classy response. I like you. You seem to be so comfortable. Well, first class does that to a lady. We flew for hours. The man who went nowhere continually flicked his blade, while I tried to figure out the lock on my robotic purse. As we flew, the sunlight of 1,000 dances went through the cockpit. We were free. The Drought. Summer died 50 years ago, and autumn never came. The sky was a hard shell of endless blue, unbroken by clouds, as if God had dipped his paintbrush in cobalt and forgotten to rinse it out. Heat waves shimmered off the asphalt like restless ghosts, and the air tasted faintly of burnt rubber and dust, the stale breath of a town stuck in time. Cedar Ridge had always been small, a thumbprint on the back roads of nowhere. There were farms, of course, though most had dried up and blown away with the last real rain. What remained were brittle corn stalks, blackened and skeletal, standing in neat rows like mourners at a graveside. The few farmers left mumbled about drought-resistant crops, but spoke of miracles with the same dry hopelessness they reserved for paying taxes. Rust scabs bloomed on the water towers, and the gas station on Main Street had stopped carrying windshield wiper fluid years ago. No need for it when the sky never wept. They still sold beer, though, and on days when the heat pressed down like a fist, the townsfolk gathered in the shade of the Sinclair station's green dinosaur sign, cold cans sweating in their hands. It was there, leaning against the faded scales of that prehistoric beast, that Tom Weaver saw the stranger for the first time. The man came walking up the road from the south, where the horizon quivered like molten glass. He wore black, a suit crisp as a knife edge, and carried a battered leather suitcase in one hand. A wide-brimmed hat shaded his face, but there was something unsettling about him, even from a distance. He didn't stumble or waver in the heat the way normal men did. His stride was steady, purposeful, as if he carried winter in his pocket. "Ain't seen a salesman in years," muttered Earl Granger, wiping sweat from his forehead with a grease-streaked rag. "What the hell's he sellin'? Coffins?" The man chuckled, low and uneasy, but Tom's beer went sour on his tongue. Something about the stranger's silhouette made his skin crawl. The sharp angles, the way shadows clung to him like cobwebs, even in the brutal sunlight. The man in black reached the edge of the group and tipped his hat politely. His eyes were a pale, icy blue, startling against the deep tan of his weathered face. He looked like someone who'd walked a long way and hadn't found what he was looking for. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice smooth as polished stone. "Mighty warm today, isn't it?" Earl snorted. "Been warm every damn day since Truman was president. What's it to you?" The stranger's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Oh, I'm just passing through. Thought maybe you fine folks could help me with a little business matter." Tom narrowed his eyes. "What kind of business?" The man set his suitcase down with a soft thud. The latches gleamed like silver teeth as he flicked them open. Inside, Nestled against dark velvet were rows of gleaming vials filled with liquid that shimmered like captured moonlight. "I sell weather," the man said simply. There was a beat of stunned silence, followed by a bark of laughter from Earl. "Weather? You gotta be kidding me. What's next? Bottled air?" The stranger didn't flinch. "Rain, snow, a cool breeze on a summer's day. I've got it all. Guaranteed to work or your money back." Tom stepped closer, curiosity prickling beneath his unease. He peered into the case, mesmerized by the swirling colors. One vial shimmered with iridescent blues and silvers, like the reflection of moonlight on water. Another glowed a fierce, fiery red. "How much?" Tom asked before he could stop himself. The stranger's lips curved into that unsettling smile again. "For you, sir? A bargain. One memory, freely given." Tom blinked. "A memory? Just a little thing," the man assured him. "Something you won't miss. In exchange, I'll give you enough rain to fill your fields for a season." Earl spat on the ground. "This is bullshit. Come on, Tommy, let's get out of here." But Tom's heart was pounding. He thought of his farm, the cracked earth, the dying crops. Thought of his wife, Ellie, who hadn't smiled in months because she knew what was coming. The bank foreclosure, the auction, the slow death of everything they'd built together. "What kind of memory?" Tom asked hoarsely. The stranger's eyes gleamed. "Oh, just a small one. Perhaps the taste of your first kiss, the sound of your mother's laughter. Nothing important." Tom hesitated, then nodded. "Deal." The man in black extended a gloved hand, and Tom shook it. The air shimmered between them, and for a moment, Tom felt a strange, dizzying tug deep in his chest, like something had been gently plucked from inside him. When it was over, the stranger handed him a vial filled with shimmering blue liquid. "Pour this over your fields tonight," he instructed. "And remember, the bargain is sealed." Tom barely heard him. His mind was already racing with visions of green fields and heavy rain. That night, under a sky still stubbornly cloudless, Tom stood at the edge of his withered fields. The brittle corn stalks rattled faintly in the dry breeze, a chorus of death. His hands trembled as he uncorked the vial, the shimmering blue liquid catching what little starlight there was. The scent hit him first, clean, sharp, like distant lightning and wet pavement after a storm. It was a smell he hadn't known in years. Taking a deep breath, Tom tilted the vial and let the liquid trickle out. It splattered onto the cracked, dust-hardened earth with a faint hiss, vanishing almost instantly into the thirsty ground. He watched, breath tight in his chest, waiting for something, anything, to happen. At first, there was only soot, thick and suffocating. Then the earth shuddered beneath his feet, subtle as a heartbeat, but growing stronger. The low, primal growl of thunder rolled across the sky, distant yet powerful, like some ancient beast awakening from a long slumber. The wind shifted, cool and damp, carrying with it the promise of deliverance. A single drop splattered against Tom's forehead, cold and startling. He blinked, hardly daring to believe it. Another drop, then another, until the heavens opened with a sudden, furious roar. Rain came down in sheets, wild, relentless, drenching him in moments. The smell of wet earth rose around him, rich and intoxicating. Dust turned to mud beneath his boots as rivulets of water carved new paths through the parched ground. Tom threw back his head and laughed. A raw, unhinged sound torn from somewhere deep inside him. He spread his arms wide, welcoming the downpour like a sinner at baptism. Water slicked his hair to his scalp and dripped from his chin, but he didn't care. His laughter mingled with the storm, defiant and joyful. The fields drank greedily, the dead husks of corn softening, straightening, as though waking from a long nightmare. Leaves unfurled, vibrant green bleeding back into lifeless stalks. The transformation was swift and almost magical. A resurrection right before his eyes. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean and glistening under a pale new sun. Tom stood at the edge of his fields, now lush and vibrant, the corn standing tall and proud, shimmering with droplets of water. The air smelled sweet, alive. The screen door creaked, and Ellie came running out of the house, bare feet splashing through puddles. Her face was radiant with disbelief, tears mingling with the remnants of rain. "Tom? How?" she gasped, her voice breaking with wonder. He didn't answer. Words seemed pointless. Instead, he pulled her into his arms and kissed her, fierce and grateful, as if sealing a promise between them. For the first time in years, Cedar Ridge felt alive, and hope, long buried beneath drought and despair, bloomed anew. The stranger returned a week later. Tom saw him standing by the gas station, his black suit immaculate despite the mud that clung to everyone else's boots. He knew, deep down, that this was no coincidence. "What do you want?" Tom demanded, his voice rough. The man's smile was razor sharp. "Just checking in. How's the farm?" "It's fine. Better than fine. Glad to hear it." The stranger's eyes glittered. "But you see, Mr. Weaver, memories are tricky things. Sometimes they're connected in ways we don't expect." Tom frowned. What are you talking about? The man tilted his head. Tell me, Tom, do you remember your wife's name? Tom opened his mouth, then froze. A cold dread crept up his spine. He could see her face clearly. Her bright eyes, the curve of her smile. But her name was gone, slipped through his fingers like water. No, Tom whispered, horror dawning. No, that's not possible. Ah, the stranger said softly. A shame. But as I said, a small thing. Nothing important. Tom lunged at him, but the man in black was already walking away, his silhouette dissolving into the shimmering heat. The rain never came again, and neither did Tom's wife. At least, not in any way that mattered. She was still there, smiling and talking. But her name was a hollow echo in Tom's mind, forever lost to the drought. And so Cedar Ridge, baked under the unchanging sun, its people haunted by what they'd forgotten, lost hope. January 20th, 2025, Entry 1. It all happened so fast. All I could grab was my journal and a few pens. Alarms began blaring, and Dad rushed me. Mom and David down into a bunker? I don't know when we got a bunker or why, but it was deep under our house. It's spooky down here. One light source in the center of the room, only 2 mattresses, and the rest of the space is full of wiggatans and jugs of water. I'm not sure how long we're going to be down here, so I figured journaling would be fun, though no one's answering my questions. Dad looks more serious than usual. He's been checking his pocket watch since we got here. Mom hasn't stopped pacing around, and David the deadbeat sat right on a mattress when we got down here. I don't want to be the only kid down here, so hopefully it only lasts a few days. January 23rd, 2025. Entry 2. The alarms and sirens from above finally stopped today. They made it hard to sleep, but it wasn't like it was easy to sleep in the first place. The beds were made for a kid half my size, and me and Mom had to share, so it was cramped. I still don't know why we are down here, but it's looking like it's going to be a little longer than a few days. It smells down here. The hole we potty in is deep, but the smell still sneaks up and fills the room with stench. And I'm not a fan of the food. I preferred the terrible food we got from the middle school. Then these cans. I wonder what my friends are doing. I miss them. January 28th, 2025. Entry 3. I hear people above. They sound sick and like they need help. Bangs and booms, groaning and wheezing. These sounds echoing through the bunker. But Dad says we can't help them. But if they're outside, why are we trapped in here? Also, David keeps looking at me funny. I don't like it. It ruins our card games. February 1st, 2025. Entry 4. I would have been such a great weather girl. I was always jealous of the ladies on TV. They were so pretty. but I can always guess the weather in the bunker. A high chance of inhaling bodily fumes, followed by boredom for the entire day. Stay safe, folks. It looks like this has no mention of ending anytime soon. No time soon. February 3rd, 2025. Entry 5. I got curious. This bunker didn't just appear. Dad must have built it. And that means he knew something. Knew this was coming. Why didn't he warn us? He has a small leather journal. Keeps it tucked inside his blazer pocket. I know I shouldn't, but I need to see what's inside. February 7th, 2025. Entry 6. I started bleeding. I didn't know what to do. I just kept crying and crying. My mom was trying to comfort and explain what was happening, but I thought I was dying. It didn't help that David kept looking at the stain on my pants. I was so embarrassed. I hate him. I hate having to be around him, and he won't stop looking at me. I wish I could just vanish. February 8th, 2025. Entry 7. I stayed up while everyone was sleeping. Dad doesn't sleep with his blazer on, so I was able to grab the journal and look through it. None of it made sense, though. There were just symbols scribbled all through the journal, but I've seen him writing in it. Why draw these symbols? What does it mean? I also think David caught me snooping, because when I walked over to his and Dad's bed, he was shifting around. If he tells I don't know what Dad will do. February 10th, 2025. Entry 8. David never said anything about the journal, so I think I'm in the clear. I'm becoming direly bored. David sits on his bed all day. Mom keeps replaying solitaire, and Dad is just checking his watch and journaling. No conversation is killing me. There's nothing new, no fresh air, and I never know if it's nighttime or not. If this is survival, is it even worth it? February 10th, 2025. Entry 9. I climbed to the top of the ladder to see if I could hear anything. I almost fell down because the ladder was old and the bars shifted. That fall could have been really bad. Most of the noises from above had stopped, and so it's just been silence. But when I pressed my ear to the hatch, I could feel vibrations, almost like a buzzing, like a wasp. There's still a world out there, I think. February 12th, 2025. Entry 9. I asked Dad about the buzzing, since now it's loud enough to be slightly heard from in the bunker. He, of course, didn't answer me, but he looked concerned by me asking. I couldn't take it. He had just stared at the hatch and then gave me his pocket watch. February. So much has happened. I lost my pens, so I couldn't write anything. It all feels so frozen. Nothing is moving anymore. Nothing's the same. My mind has run out of thoughts. The noises above are muffled. The only thing I feel is my heart bumping in my chest. Dad stopped checking his watch. He no longer writes anymore. I miss showering. My body is so dirty. even though I scrub so much. No matter how hard I try, the dirt won't come off. I catch my dad looking at the ceiling every day now. He's probably thinking what we both have been thinking this entire time. Is it safe to go up yet? He always looks scared whenever the thought crosses his mind. I can see it. His dread of what's to come. Why won't he tell me? Is it so terrible? Maybe I should find out for myself. It would be better than being in this casket. I'm tired of soup. I'm so tired. I want him to hug me. I want a hug so bad. It's been so long since I've been hugged. But I can't. I can't accept his comfort. It's hurting him to know he can't help me. A hug from Mom would've. She gave the best hugs. The buzzings never stopped before. So many continuous days with that buzzing in my ear. It's finally gone. Something changed. I have to take this chance. Dad would try to stop me if he knew. I have to do it now while he's asleep. I know you're reading this now, Dad. I love you. I wasn't strong enough. Forgive me. And then the red one enters. A great artist once said, color. What a deep and mysterious language. The language of dreams. Depending on the situation or distraction, this philosophy unquestionably plays an integral part in Herbert Truelove's meandering existence, floating and gliding from one state of contented, colorful contemplation to the next, regardless of the consequences. It is Tuesday. Spring has just about sprung, and a dapple of weak sunlight is finally threatening to break through the clouds that have been in perpetual domination since last October. At least it seems that way to Herb, who, as we speak, is in a daydream of sorts, caught between the grim reality of his humdrum day job and the fantastical scenes that his mind is playing out to him. Today, softly tinted marshmallow cats and dogs with expertly curated mustaches and jaunty little hats are fleeting across his venturing mind. Everything is off and hazy around the edges. The sun's faint rays kiss the scene with hues of pale yellow, blue, and pink. And across the dusty blue sky, cloud-like forms are enticing him away to somewhere far beyond the gray walls of reality, where Herb's flesh and bones exist. True love. Shrill and pointed as ever, the bespectacled and suited Geraldine Ledbetter, a storm cloud personified, marches across the office and places herself between the window and Herb's reverie. She casts the darkest kind of shadow across the desk, perhaps the sort you might encounter in a terrible nightmare. Are the figures for the board meeting ready yet? The words thunder reverberating in Herb's ears. But he is not easily fazed. Herb has learned that it is best to do whatever is asked of him. Herb knows that it's wise to keep his head down and complete his work to an adequate standard so that it attracts minimal attention. Herb knows where his mind would rather be. The mustachioed marshmallow cats and dogs saunter away towards the rapidly graying clouds, and Herb, rubbing his eyes, waggles the gray plastic mouse to motion his laptop back into life. "Half an hour," mutters Herb, as he adjusts himself to the reality that surrounds him. The cats and dogs disappearing into the cloudy horizon. His tired eyes flicker across the incomplete spreadsheet that occupies the screen. Conditional formatting highlights the cells that need to be completed in a garish, bright yellow. As Herb knows from bitter experience, the department heads are notoriously tardy in submitting their month-end figures, and this month is no exception, and that will include the projections for the second quarter. The dark outline of Geraldine Ledbetter demands rather than questions. Of course, around the edge of Geraldine's heavy form, Herb can see a butterfly hovering outside the window, its golden-tipped wings unusually early for the time of year, but splendid all the same as it flutters in the mid-morning light. On my desk by 11 sharp then. Then Geraldine, engulfed within her ominous cloud, rumbles back through the office and is gone. The light resumes its place on Herb's desk, and his pupils contract for a moment. As he refocuses, he watches the butterfly as it continues to dance outside the window, coaxing and tantalizing, almost coquettishly, if a butterfly could assume such a demeanor. "Hey, Herb, look at me." Herb runs his hand over his chin, catching the patch of stubble that he's missed during this morning's shave. The empty yellow cells blink at him. Herb is no fool, of course. He is something of a spreadsheet genius, and all the projections, graphs, and charts will update automatically as soon as he inputs the missing figures. He turns his attention away from the butterfly for a moment and flicks to his emails. Nothing. 5 department heads have still not submitted their figures. Herb detests having to chase them. They make him feel insignificant, as though they have more important things to think about than a few numbers. Numbers that you should bloody well know if you had any clue what you were doing, thinks Herb. The tapping at the window draws his attention away from the screen. The butterfly is still there, and in the distance, pink and blue, marshmallow, cats and doigts with mustaches and jaunty hats are bounding along the treetops. The butterfly poses enigmatically on a small branch that grows out of the old brickwork, stretching and twitching its outstretched wings. Herb is so overwhelmingly compelled by the creature that he moves cautiously round to the other side of the desk and crouches down, the thinning fabric of his trousers straining at the knees as he does so. The glass separates his nose from the butterfly by less than an inch. Over the hills and the meadows, golden yellow with rapeseed and sunflowers, far too early for the time of year, but glorious all the same. The countryside is ablaze with color as Herb and the butterfly soar, dipping and flying over the landscape below, hanging on tightly to its wings, delighting in every swirl and swoop. Herb is surprised to see strange markings on the insect, not usual for this type. In between the clouds, the cats and dogs nod and doff their hats as he passes, and Herb strains his eyes against the wind, fascinated by the butterfly, curious to examine more closely its squiggles and shapes. Back at his desk, Herb recalls the markings, which were in fact numbers. 5 of them etched in fine, flowing lines across the butterfly's wings. He opens the spreadsheet and, compelled by something he knows not, he enters the numbers into the bright yellow cells, which immediately reformat to corporate gray. The bottom line updates, the graphs and charts complete. All is done. But the cell containing the overall projection for the next quarter is now red. This doesn't surprise Herb. The second quarter is always like that. So he prints off copies for the board meeting, slides them onto Geraldine's desk whilst she's in the washroom, and disappears for an early lunch. Outside, the sun has burned away the hazy cloud of earlier, and the day promises to be a little warmer than of late. Herb buys a takeaway sandwich and coffee. Then, in the small memorial garden down the road from the office, he finds an empty bench facing the sun. He sips the coffee, letting the warm, milky substance trickle down his throat and warm his insides, the caffeine tingling through his veins. Herb closes his eyes. Blotches of red, orange, and green fill his vision as the light from the sun leaves its mark. The green shapes begin to move in slow, swirling motions, bumping off the red and orange like a crooked kaleidoscope. Herb recalls holding his eye to the brightly decorated tube, turning the colored beads, reflecting in the mirrors. In the distance, his mother is calling him in from the living room to go through to the kitchen for his dinner. The kaleidoscope falls to the floor, and the green swirls fill his vision as a formation of leaves and petals spin clockwise and then anti-clockwise, alternating, until a purple snake pokes its head through the center of the arrangement. It smiles. It's a pleasant enough smile, though perhaps verging on the sinister, and the corners of Herb's mouth twitch slightly. People passing through the memorial garden give him a wide berth. Herb sips the last of his tepid coffee, eats the ham sandwich, which is now lukewarm, and stretches his legs before heading back inside. As he passes the office window, he checks his reflection. Reasonable enough, if a little worn around the edges, but he notices that his shirt looks an odd color. Herb shakes his head. Just the light, and heads back into the office. Herb's stomach sinks as, returning to his desk, he sees the familiar outline of Geraldine against the window. But as he gets closer, he notices an expression on her face that he's never seen before. Not the usual storm cloud, more like a break in the weather, a lightening of the day. There's a faint flush of color to her cheeks, a softening of her usually harsh and critical eyes. Her blouse, usually a nondescript department store shade of grayish beige, now seems to emit a slight hint of pink, not bright enough to be obvious, but just enough to make Herb look twice. "The board meeting went well," she says. The projections were in line with expectations. "Good work, true love," Herb nods, not sure how to respond. She has never called his work good before. Ever. "I need you to run some modeling," she continues. "Future projections, based on recent trends. A few different scenarios. I want to see what we're looking at for the next couple of years." She turns to leave, then pauses. "By the way," she adds, looking Herb up and down in a way that makes him feel like he's transparent. "I like that shirt on you. You had a dark blue one on before, didn't you?" Herb looks down. His shirt seems pale and washed out, and he's not entirely sure what color it had been earlier, his morning routine being somewhat chaotic. The first shirt out of the wardrobe usually suffices. Herb sits at his desk. For a moment, he glances towards the window as temptation draws him to contemplate for just a little while. But Geraldine's demeanor has startled him, setting him off balance. For the first time since starting with the firm, he feels compelled to produce what she wants as accurately and as promptly as he can. Herb exhales slowly and turns to the spreadsheet. Numbers and formulas are a place of comfort and security for him, and he begins to plan out the equations and tables of data that he needs. Everything is mapping into the right place. No errors flash, but his mind is slowly drifting. The warmth of the sun still lingers on his face. The coffee tingles in his bloodstream, and Herb's fingers hover over the keys. The marshmallow cats and dogs have returned, their sugary bodies bound across a soft, undulating pastel landscape, their hats perched askew at gravity-defying angles. Herb watches the beautiful hues of the world around them, gentle like childhood dreams. He smiles as they swirl and leap, admiring their peculiar hats and mustaches. Then there's a flicker, and something deeper in his mind stirs. Herb snaps back to the screen. The formatting is wrong. Purple cells. They hadn't been there before. He hadn't formatted them that way. Herb was sure of that. The empty spaces within them pulse ever so slightly, and Herb's stomach tightens as he recalls the numbers on the golden-tipped butterfly. The snake was purple, He tries to remember the patterns. Had there been numbers? Herb leans back in his chair and closes his eyes, trying to recall, attempting to re-summon the lunchtime dream. The marshmallow creatures appear again, bounding across rolling, gentle pistachio fields, warm, comforting, inviting. But that's not what he needs right now. The snake had been different. It had coiled through a spiral of violet and deep shades of green, its smile knowing, its movements slow and deliberate. Herb pushes deeper into the memory, searching for it, feeling the gentle marshmallow dreams resisting, as if trying to keep him away. Then he finds it. The kaleidoscope returns. "Your dinner's ready, Herbert." But the snake slithers from the swirling pattern of leaves, its scales shimmering in purple hues. And there they are, the numbers, etched in golden ink along its back, shifting and twisting as the creature moves. Herb returns to his desk with a jolt. His fingers move quickly before his waking mind erases what he's just seen. And with shaking hands, he enters the snake's numbers into the spreadsheet. The model updates. The figures align. Herb's heart thumps in his chest. The purple cells have turned gray, but he doesn't know what the new snake-derived data means. But when he prints the pages and places them on Geraldine's desk, she looks at him with something close to admiration. "Interesting," she murmurs. Geraldine chews her freshly painted lips as her eyes move across the sheets. "This changes things. Leave this with me, true love." Then a pause as she adjusts the chain of magenta beads that seem to have appeared around her neck. "Thank you." Later in the week, we find Herb reflecting on the events of the last couple of days. He's continually surprised and a little bewildered at the changes he sees in Geraldine's persona, gaining subtle hints of color in both her wardrobe and her demeanor. With every financial forecast or model that she requests, amidst wild daytime dreams and flickering spreadsheets, Herb delivers the goods. He knows he's making a good impression, but his daytime reveries are changing, showing him things he's never seen before, and he isn't sure how he feels about that. The faded and worn knees of his trousers have thinned further, now nearly transparent, and when he catches his reflection in the washroom mirror, the patchy stubble on his chin seems to be developing a rather gray tinge. Herb's comforting daydreams, full of soft and gentle color, seem to come less readily, and the pink and blue creatures keep on vanishing over the darkened horizon. The spring that threatened to flourish just days earlier has retreated back into winter, and a bitter easterly wind whips around every building and street corner. Today, it is Friday, and Geraldine wants the latest figures to review over the weekend. As ever, Herb is on point to deliver. It seems to him that the department heads have faded into obscurity. They approve the files that Herb emails to them without a second glance, and Geraldine continues to be enthralled, enchanted almost, by the tables and charts that Herb sets on her desk at every demand. This morning, Geraldine's blouse is a vibrant cornflower blue, her smile brighter, her voice lighter. She calls Herb into her office. "Herb?" she smiles. "Did she just call me Herb? The board members have noticed your work. They want you to take on some more experimental forecasting." Herb's eyes drift past Geraldine's shoulder. Through the window, he sees a slender man in a tight red suit balancing on the edge of the window ledge. He's grinning at Herb, opening and closing his suit jacket, revealing something, a code perhaps, and then quickly concealing it, smirking as he does so. Behind, in the distance, the soothing colors of pastel fields flicker as marshmallow cats and dogs try to draw Herb's attention. The scarlet character outside the window watches, waiting. "Herb!" Geraldine's voice punctures Herb's distraction. This could mean a promotion, more pay, more prestige. Think about it over the weekend. Herb rattles his head, bringing himself back into the moment. "I'm sorry, Geraldine. It's been quite a week." He looks down at his hand. It looks paler than before, almost translucent under the harsh office lights. He swallows, his throat dry. "I'll get those figures to you this morning, ready for the weekend." The spreadsheet gapes at Herb. It flickers. Cells that were accurate earlier are now showing RF and other disturbing error codes that Herb has never seen before. Other cells are suddenly formatted in red, their borders animated, serpents slithering around each red cell. Herb looks out of the window across the gray sky, where trees bend and sway in the wind, and litter from the street blows up in gusts. The red-suited man peeps impishly around the corner of the window, just enough that Herb sees his menacing grin. Then he steps fully into view. Herb notices the purple snake wrapped around the man's left leg, and on his right shoulder sits a butterfly with golden-tipped wings. Somewhere in the distance, in what feels like another world, a dream within a dream, the blue and pink marshmallow creatures are trying to reach him, their little hats bobbing as they bounce over clouds. But the scarlet presence is looming closer, toying with the buttons on his red jacket. Open or closed, it mouths through the glass. The butterfly flaps and the snake slithers, its purple scales gleaming, waiting for Herb to notice the fresh set of numbers along its back. As Herb closes his eyes, he finds himself at an unfamiliar crossroads. One path stretches away in soft, gentle hues. It feels familiar and safe. He can see the marshmallow creatures playing in the distance, their hats bobbing as they bound through a pastel-tinted world of sunlit clouds. They wag their tails, tweak their mustaches, urging him to join them. But they are fading, their edges blurring. In the opposite direction, shadows twist into deeper, richer colors. Purple, red, gold. The air sparks with energy that Herb can't see, and the red-suited man stands, waiting, his smirk widening as he temptingly holds his jacket open, revealing an array of numbers and equations. Herb rubs his eyes, looks again in each direction. Herb is compelled by something unfathomable, but he thinks he understands. At his desk, Herb works feverishly, head down. He is focused on completing the spreadsheet for Geraldine. By lunchtime, he has succeeded in his task. Geraldine is happy. She pats the papers on her desk fondly, like a favorite pet. She'll look at them over the weekend, she tells Herb. She trusts him to have done a good job. We rejoin Herbert Truelove the following morning. It is Saturday. His tousled head emerges from beneath the bedclothes, and he greets the weekend with a yawn, blinking at the light creeping between the gap in his thin bedroom curtains. He has slept well, remarkably well, in fact. It has been the best night's sleep Herb has had in a very long time. Gridlock of the mind. The 405 stretched endlessly before me, a vein of asphalt pulsing with the dull monotony of brake lights. Every morning, I merged into the current of half-conscious souls, each of us trapped in the same routine, inching forward to destinations we resented. My corporate job barely paid my bills, and my spirit eroded with each passing day. Yet, like a prisoner resigned to their cell, I got into my car every morning, hoping, futilely, that something, anything, would change. Today felt no different. The same stifling air, the same murmur of the radio, the same dull ache pressing behind my eyes. I stared ahead, watching as the red taillights blinked and glowed in a never-ending pattern, hypnotic in their rhythm. I sighed, my hands gripping the wheel. This wasn't life. This was something else, some cruel purgatory where change was an illusion. As I drove, a strange sensation washed over me, an unsettling tug at the back of my mind. It was faint at first, like the nagging feeling of forgetting something important. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. Had I left the stove on? No, I hadn't cooked in days. My laptop? No, it was in my bag, thrown onto the passenger seat in my usual morning autopilot. Then what? My phone rang, vibrating against the plastic cup holder. The number flashed on the screen. Unknown, but I knew better. Bill collectors. I clenched my jaw before answering, already bracing myself. Hello? A voice on the other end rattled off my name, their tone all business, all demand. We're calling about your outstanding balance." I exhaled sharply, my frustration boiling over. "Do you think I don't know that? Do you think I just forgot? I'm sitting in traffic, wasting my life away every single day to make barely enough to survive. And you think I magically have money for you? Tell me, how am I supposed to pay you when I can't even afford to live?" Silence. A pause. Then the collector launched into their script again, as if my words meant nothing. I hung up. Hard. The phone clattered onto the seat, and I turned the music up. Loud. A mix of music and Spotify affirmations played in an endless loop. "You are strong. You are capable," a voice repeated. But the words felt hollow against the weight pressing down on me. I switched back to music, something loud enough to drown it all out. But after a few minutes, I found myself back on the affirmations, searching for something, anything that might stick. "You are in control of your life," the voice insisted. I scoffed, flipping back to music again. The bass thumped through my chest, rattling through my bones, drowning out the rage, the helplessness, the crushing weight of it all. I shook the feeling off and pressed forward. But the thought gnawed at me, creeping into the corners of my mind like an itch I couldn't scratch. The traffic slowed, locking me into a dead stop between exits. I drummed my fingers against the wheel, the silence growing unbearable. Something was wrong. Something was missing. The air inside the car felt heavier now, oppressive. I adjusted my rearview mirror and caught a glimpse of my own eyes, shadowed and hollow. Was it always this way? Was I always this way? The weight of exhaustion bore down on me. My limbs felt heavier than they should. Had I slept enough last night? Had I ever slept enough? I closed my eyes, taking slow, steady breaths. But when I opened them, the scenery outside seemed different. The colors muted, the sounds dampened. My vision blurred for a moment before snapping back into focus. But the creeping unease remained. I was losing time. One moment, I was at the interchange, and the next, I was pulling into the parking garage beneath my office building. My heart pounded as I stepped out of the car, my legs unsteady, as if I had forgotten how to walk. The air felt wrong, too thick, too still. I moved through the lobby, the fluorescent lights above buzzing softly, pressing against my skull like a dull migraine. The elevator doors slid open, and I stepped inside. The mirrored walls reflected me back at myself. And for a fleeting moment, I saw something else. A blur. A shadow of someone who wasn't quite me. I blinked, and it was gone. The doors opened to my floor, and I walked down the sterile hallway, my footsteps muffled against the carpet. My hands were cold, my breath shallow. My mind screamed at me to turn back, to run. But my body moved forward, as if caught in the undertow of a dream. I reached my office door, hesitated, then turned the knob. The room was dark. The air smelled of familiarity, of something deeply personal. My breath hitched as I took a step inside, and the walls expanded, morphing, shifting. No, I wasn't at the office. I was home. My bedroom lay before me, unchanged and untouched, as if I had never left. My unmade bed, the half-empty coffee cup on my nightstand, the soft hum of the city outside my window. I stumbled backward, my heart hammering. How? I had driven here. I had spent an hour in traffic. I had been walking into my office just moments ago. I turned, reaching for the door, but when I opened it, there was no hallway, just the same road, the same endless stretch of the 405. My hands trembled as I turned back toward my room, only to find it dissolving around me, slipping through my fingers like sand. And then I was back in my car. Traffic had barely moved. The radio played the same mindless chatter, and the clock on my dashboard blinked mockingly. 7:45 a.m., just like it always was. I let out a shaky breath, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My skin felt cold. My pulse raced. What was real? Where had I been? And then the realization hit me. I was late. I was still home. Still in bed. Still asleep. The panic rose, clawing up my throat as I fumbled for my phone, desperate to check the time, to wake myself up. But when I looked down, my hands weren't there. The car, the traffic, the drive, it wasn't real. I never left my bed. I was still dreaming, or living a nightmare over and over. There's a Grizzly on the plane. People are shuffling down the aisle of the plane, scooting one step at a time, shoving things in the overhead compartment, elbowing and kneeing each other as they throw themselves down into their seats. The flight attendants are smiling brightly and saying, "Good morning, good morning, good morning," to each passenger in turn as they enter the plane. The captain is there with them. I take a good look at him. I know this guy. Kind of a wimp. That's why I knew this was the right flight. I think his name is Cameron. When I press the barrel of this gun against his head, he'll do anything I say. One man with a gun can do anything. I give him a little wink. I'll see you soon. It's easy to get around airport security when you work at an airport. This is gonna be my final flight. And the final flight for all these people too. I'm not gonna shoot them all. Maybe just a few. Might as well. But most of them are going out with a real bang. Not me, though. gonna shoot myself right before we crash. My seat is 32 of, so here we go. Almost there. And I stop. I see it, but I can't. There. There's... What? No. Yes. There's a goddamn grizzly bear sitting in a seat. Buckled in. A woman sitting next to him is feeding him pink bits of something from a bowl. The bear is huge, but somehow fits in the seat like it was custom made. It's sitting straight up in the seat, buckled in. How? What? The woman caught me staring. Ooh, sorry. He doesn't like to be stared at. The bear is staring at me with deep brown eyes, dark brown fur, huge paws, long claws. It starts snorting and moaning, and I shake my head and keep walking to my seat. I look around, and everyone else seems to be fine with this. How did I not see the bear walk onto the plane? Why is no one else freaking out about this? I find 32F, and I look back to the bear, who's a few rows ahead. The bear turns its head and looks back at me. I turn my head away and drop down into my seat. The bear turned around, and the woman next to it gave it another morsel. A man sits down next to me and says, "Hello there. Do you see that?" I said. "Oh yeah, we've got a full plane today. That's good luck, you know." "No, not that. I point. "What? The bear," I said, so loud that a few people turned around and looked at me. "Oh yeah, he's a cute guy, isn't he?" "That's insane," I tried whispering, but I know everyone heard me. Shouldn't be a problem. The guy sits down and starts looking at his phone. Just like that. I look around and see others doing the same. I see people reading books, eating snacks, whatever. Nobody is freaking out over the goddamn grizzly bear sitting in 25B. "Sir, I'll need to place your bag in the overhead compartment," says a flight attendant. "No, this is my carry-on. My gun is in here. Sorry, sir, but new safety procedures say we need all bags placed in the overhead bin for takeoff. Once we reach cruising altitude, you can get your bag." She reaches over to take my bag from my lap, but I hold on to it. "Sir, please," she says with a firm pull. I pull back. She's not letting go. We're having a small tug of war over my neighbor's lap. "Let her have the bag, just doing her job," says my nonchalant neighbor. I let go, and she opened the compartment over my seat. "Oh, we're all full here. Let's see." She's opening compartments down the line, away from me. "Here we are. Sir, I'm placing your bag right here, right above the bear." How did the bear get on here? How did it fit on the plane? Why does the bear have an aisle seat? Why is there a bear on the plane? Why is no one freaking out? She shuts the compartment and walks towards the front of the plane. "We'll be taking off soon. You look nervous, son. "Is this your first flight?" asks the man next to me. "No, I've flown lots of times." This was supposed to be the last time. The attendants are doing their usual pre-flight routine of instructing people how to put their seatbelts together and how to put on the emergency oxygen masks. I guess the bear doesn't need any help. Its caretaker is sitting right next to it. The seatbelt fits, so I guess they have a special bear mask too. Wouldn't want the wild animal to get hurt, now would we? Focus. It's just an animal, after all. It'll be the first thing I shoot. I've got a machine gun, so I'll just spray it with a dozen bullets or so. That should keep the rest of the idiots in their seats. Then I'm back in charge. Bear looks calm anyway. Shouldn't be hard. Today is my day. Nothing is going to change this. The pilot tells us on the overhead that we're ready for takeoff. The bear made a low growl, and the woman next to it scratched behind his ears, soothing it. The plane starts moving down the runway. Normally, this part of flying doesn't bother me, but today, I'm gripping my armrests. The acceleration picks up, and the plane's engines get louder. I'm staring at the back of the bear's head, which is completely still, like some damn taxidermy project that had its own ticket. The wheels of the plane leave the ground, and we are in the air. I'm in a window seat, so I turn my head to look out, hoping it will calm me down, knowing that all is going according to plan, except for the bear. All I have to do is get the bag, kill the bear, shoot that bitch that brought him on here too. Maybe a few more people, just for fun. Then up to the cockpit with a hostage on the bad end of the barrel to make my way in. I'll tell the captain that we're making an unexpected detour right into the middle of the nearest city. Right before we crash, I'll shoot myself. We have to wait before we reach cruising altitude. Then I can move about freely. Then we'll have about 30 to 40 minutes before we get close to the nearest big city. Enough time to feel like God before dying. I'm watching through the window, still gripping the armrests. "Looks like you need a drink of water," says the man next to me. I realize my forehead is covered with sweat. "Yeah, I guess I could," I say, wiping my forehead. I look back and see that the goddamn bear is reclining in its seat. Person behind it doesn't seem to mind. Just then, the bear turned around and looked at me. I turned back to the window. Even over the sound of the plane's engines, I can hear the bear smacking its lips, followed by another low rumbling growl, almost like it's annoyed by me. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to fuck up your day. I must have gotten lost in the window, as the next time I looked up, the snack cart was being pushed down the aisle by an attendant. What's the bear gonna have? A cookie? Water? Or Coke? When that cart gets behind me, I'm gonna get up and get over there and grab my bag. I'll take a can of Coke when she gets here." Now she's asking the woman next to the bear if she'll have anything. The woman takes a cookie and a cup of water. The bear got nothing. I guess it's full. Come on, come on, hurry up. She's taking her sweet time, pushing that cart down the aisle. My jaw is clenched tight, like a bear trap. All right, here she is. Finally. Would you like anything, sir? She asks the man next to me. Yes, a water for myself and for my friend here. No, thank you. I'll have a Coke. Oh, nonsense. You sweating like that? You need a water. 2 waters, please. The woman poured 2 waters, and I gulped mine down in 1 drink before she even left. Would you like another? She asks. No, I want a Coke. She hands me the red can, and I chug half of it. The sugar and caffeine hit my brain like ice water. I put the can down, and the bear is staring at me again. The attendant pushes the cart down to the row behind us. It's time now. The bear is still looking back at me. I'll give it a minute. Finish my drink. You know, I had a bear like that when I was younger, said the man next to me. What? Oh yeah, his name was Popper. Great bear. You ever had a bear? No, I fucking haven't. I'm gonna kill this son of a bitch too. Right after the bear. The bear is still staring at me. And now I'm staring back. I finish my can of Coke and crunch it in my hand. I'm in control here. It's time. Now. Right now. Let's go. I unbuckle my seatbelt and stumble across my neighbor's knees, almost falling into the opposite row. A lot of people notice and are now watching me, but the bear is now looking straight ahead, unaware of me. I think. It's cool. Just a few steps, open the compartment, and start blasting. This is my day, and nothing is going to screw it up. The aisle seems a mile long, and it's taking all my willpower to pick up my feet for every step. I make it to the compartment, the bear sitting right next to me. I reach up to open the hatch, and, "Excuse me," says the woman with the bear. "Could you hand me my bag? It's in there. I need something from it." "Is it for the bear?" I ask. I didn't mean to, but it slipped. "No, it's just a book for me to read. I can smell the bear. Deep pine woods. Its huge paw is brushing against my leg. It's just the fur touching me, but I see the long claws. I open the compartment, and there's my bag, right in front of hers. One quick draw, and I could shoot the bear. Just unload the whole fucking clip into him and forget the rest. Make my way to the cockpit, and the bear's huge paw falls from the armrest, and the claws scrape my leg. I fall back into someone's lap, with my heart in my throat. I look at the bear, and it's still in its seat, eyes closed, breathing deep. That low rumble, which is louder than the engines. Oh, sorry about that. He's just sleeping. Sir, excuse me. says the flight attendant with the cart. She's finished handing out cookies and Cokes, and now wants to go back to the front. With the look on her face, I believe she would run me over if she could. She grabbed the lady's bag and handed it to her and closed the compartment. "I need something out of there," I say. "Yes, sir. I'll..." She stops and nearly falls over her cart as the plane has hit sudden turbulence. I bump into the person sitting behind me, opposite the compartment. "Sir, get back to your seat." "I just need..." "Sir, you need to get back to your seat." The plane bumps and shakes, and now the bear is awake and growling. The woman hands him some pink bit out of a container, which I can now see is fish. Salmon. The bear snacks and smacks, but still makes that growling sound, making an awful mixture of sounds. The attendant has pulled the cart backwards down the aisle, leaving me an open path to my seat. The bear looks at me with salmon hanging from its jaws, so I crawl and stumble back to my seat. "Buckle up. It's a bumpy ride," says the idiot sitting next to me. I'm going to kill the bear, then him, then the attendant, then the woman. I buckle my belt, and still my head slams into the window. People are screaming, kids are crying, the plane is bumping and rattling. The captain's voice comes over the speaker, saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in your seats. We are experiencing extreme turbulence." The bear is growling and tossing in its seat. The woman tries to feed it more salmon, but the bear isn't having it. He swats away her hand with a huge paw, and the pink salmon goes flying across the plane. The bear tosses and turns and rumbles harder than the plane and breaks free. The goddamn thing has gotten out of its chair. I have to go now. I unbuckle my seatbelt, and the moron next to me says, "You don't want to do that, son." I punch him in the mouth, just so I know I got him one good time before this is over. I'll take this bear down with the rest of them. I brace myself against the seats, and I take small steps with firm feet, and make my way to the compartment. The bear is squeezed in the aisle on all fours, bouncing off the seats, but mostly steady. Facing away from me. Good. Almost there. I grab the seat it used to sit in, and I open the compartment. I unzip my bag, and I see the machine gun. It's already loaded. All I have to do is grab it and open fire. Never killed an animal before. It's kinda like a bonus. The plane has settled. No more turbulence. Everything is still and smooth, and I hear the bear make a noise. I turn to see it facing me. On all fours, it's half as tall as me. "Oh my, thank you, thank you. Please, help him to his seat," says the woman. He just loses his temper when there's turbulence. I look back to the bear, who's looking at me with deep brown eyes. "Just take his paw. and help him to his seat. I'd help you, but I hurt my ankle in all the trouble. Just take his paw. I don't know why, but I stick out my hand. The bear puts its paw out and softly lights on my palm. It makes some kind of noise that I can't figure out if it's aggressive or friendly. I slowly back up, keeping my eyes on the bear as it walks towards its seat. The bear sits down, and she buckles him in, and the whole plane starts clapping. They're saying, "Aw," and "How sweet," and whatever else. "Are you fucking kidding me?" The captain's voice over the speaker says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we seem to be in the clear now, but I am asking that you remain in your seats for the remainder of the flight." Thank you, sir. That goddamn attendant again. She appeared like a fucking ghost. Please return to your seat. I'm so goddamn flabbergasted. I don't know what to do. Just whatever. I shut the compartment. I take my seat. The guy sitting next to me is holding his mouth, but pulls his hand down to say, "Good job back there. I forgive you for socking me. We all get a little emotional sometimes under pressure. It takes a brave man to do what you did, risking yourself for that poor animal. I'm sure he appreciates you. I don't know what to say to that." I look out the window and see the big city, so small way down below us. I watch as clouds fill the window and blot out the city with pure white. I look back at the bear, who's looking back at me. I stayed in my seat for the rest of the flight, grabbed my bag, and deboarded the plane. Not one bullet fired. So today's story has come to an end. Or perhaps it never really ended. There are mysteries still there, questions still unanswered, and sometimes things that seem to only exist in stories can creep into reality in unexpected ways. Are you sure that when you turn off the sound, everything around you will still be normal as before? Or is there something watching you? Either way, always remember that these are just stories, or at least we want to believe that they are. If you like moments of suspense, tension, and breathlessness, don't forget to follow me so you don't miss the next stories. And next time, when you come back, make sure you are ready, because what awaits you may be even scarier than you thought. See you again if you still have the courage to continue listening.